everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Gameable Audio, a VGM podcast. This is episode 36. My name is Kristoffer Schenström, and today is yet again a very special episode, as we are going to talk to the composer Jacob Lincke on the track and soundtrack that he worked on for Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom. Hello and welcome, Jacob.
Hello, Chris. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to actually have you here. Right before we started recording here, we actually looked into the last time we spoke, and hell, it was quite some time ago.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
A few, is to say the least. No, you actually joined me in to talk about your work on Flynn, son of... What was the last? Was someone of...
Son of Crimson.
Crimson was, yeah. That's
and it's been a couple of years of silence from me. But I've been working hard on stuff, so...
That's good to hear. I mean, what we heard on that soundtrack was amazing. And what we're going to talk about today is also going to be amazing, but in a different kind of sense, I would guess.
Yeah, I'd say so.
There are, even though there are similarities, video games, of course, but there are a lot of differences in these soundtracks as well. Considering that, I think it shows a little bit more of what you're capable of doing.
Yeah, so the broadness of this new soundtrack is pretty different from Flynn, Son of Crimson, which was mainly an orchestral soundtrack with some folk music instruments. But this one is like genre mashing and genre bending on a completely new level.
It's a whole lot amazing, to be honest. Me listening through, I actually, for reference, I have played the demo for this and completed the demo as well, and I was super excited. So that makes me even more excited to actually have you here, talk a little bit more about the music, but also have a little bit of a thought on the game itself as well. So overall, we will promote more of your work, but also a little bit of the game. But first of all, before we dive into the game and the soundtrack, I know we talked a little bit about like how you got into everything back when we had a Swedish podcast and we had the first interview. But for everybody who does not know you to date, it's like, who are you? How did you get into what got you started with music, basically? Let's start there.
Yeah, so I'm Jacob Lincke. I'm from Gothenburg, Sweden. I am 34 years old, and I have been working full-time as a composer for about 3 years, I think, 2 maybe. I'm not sure. But I started probably 15 years ago. It was like my senior year in high school that I actually became interested in pursuing a career. Before that, I played a little guitar. I liked listening to music, but I hadn't really thought about working within the music industry. But when my interest got picked up, first I should probably start with the background before that. So yeah, my background is that my father has been a violinist his whole life, and my mother has been a pianist and has been teaching. I'm not even sure where I'm going with this. Talking about this stuff, I don't think people don't really care about it. So I feel.
So in this case, you actually had a family with musicians, and that was kind of what got you started into it. Was it because of the family that motivated you into getting into music, or was it more like they were doing it so you wanted to do it too?
It was actually the opposite, because they wanted me to do music, and I did not want to do music.
Okay.
They wanted me to pick up an instrument. I tried picking up like flute and violin and piano and all that. I hated it. I hated all of it. And I think the reason for that was because I didn't choose it myself. A few years after that, I got the opportunity to choose an instrument in school. And that's where I picked up the guitar. And I liked doing it.
Oh, that's nice. And you never had any like thoughts about picking up any of your parents' favorite instrument during this time as well? Or was it more like, hey, this was my new favorite type of instrument because I chose it myself and you worked from there?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I didn't really think about anything else but guitar. Now, looking back, I kind of wish I had listened to my parents. I wish I had learned to play the flute. I wish I had learned to play the violin. I do have a lot of flutes and a violin, but I can't play them. I kind of hit myself a bit for that because they are sometimes needed, and I have to hire someone instead.
Okay.
And,
But you don't feel like working with these type of instruments now that you want to learn them over the course of time right now, or do you feel it's more lack of time right now as you are working as a full-time composer?
yeah,
instead?
that's probably. I mean, working as a full-time composer, I don't really have time to practice new instruments. I mean, sometimes I do record stuff on instruments I don't really play.
Yeah.
And I try to make them sound kind of like they should. But I don't really have time like practicing scales and all that you really need to do to actually learn becoming fluent in an instrument.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of wish I wish I had done that.
Now, I really like these kind of things as well, because it all comes down from composer to composer, because there are some really freak of natures to some extent with some composers that they pick up an instrument and like give them a month and I feel like they're like an expert now on it.
Yeah,
and it's so much interesting to see that kind of style. But for you, when you have musicians as parents, it feels like you had a sort of edge there, but due to the fact that you started hating it instead, like they pushed too hard, and then you got to pick your own and you fell in love with it instead, is kind of a love story by itself. But considering that you had the potential in order to do it maybe, but overall due to this, you might have struck a nerve to some extent.
Yeah, I think it was just that the feeling of like music being a chore. I didn't really like that. But yeah, like you said, picking it up myself was, I mean, I always liked music, listening to music, and I appreciated all the instruments and all that, but maybe I was just lazy and didn't like practicing. It could have been that I was too young.
Could be.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But considering as you got into guitar and so on, I guess you were playing in bands and so on growing up, as most of people that pick up a guitar.
Yeah, I did play a little bit in bands. I played in one metal band with a few friends. We sounded terrible, but it was fun. And then I played in a pop band later, which was also really fun, playing some covers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in the past, like 10 to 12 years, I haven't played in a band at all. Or even played with other musicians. I solely focus on composing.
Okay, interesting. So when did you get into the thought that, hey, I can make and make music for video games?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think it was when I was at the university. I did study music for a couple of years back in 2010 or something, 9 to 11. And my plan was to go into the film scoring scene.
Okay.
Because I really enjoyed listening to film music, and a lot of my musical heroes were film composers. So that was my original plan. But the school I went to, it was the University of Skövde.
Yes.
And they had some game developing programs, which I got in contact with. And it was basically by chance, I'd say. Because I wasn't really planning on it, but they were looking for someone to make music for a project, a school project. So I did know how to produce music, and I did like producing orchestral music, which was what they needed. So from there, I got the opportunity to actually record some of it with a live orchestra, and even perform some of it in front of a live audience, which was very cool.
That's very cool. But considering that when we're looking at composers to date, we know that it becomes more and more common for video games to have orchestras implemented into them. But for you to work as, I would say, at such an early stage of your career, it's like, how did you get in contact with an actual orchestra to perform these and to record? It's like usually when people thinking about orchestras, there's a lot of money into that section.
Yeah, I think it was thanks to it being a school. I mean, I got a lot of help from teachers. The actual orchestra were also like students and stuff. So it became quite natural, I'd say. And it didn't really cost any money, because everyone was there to learn.
Okay.
But I probably set the bar for myself pretty high very early on, because from then on I thought, okay, so this is what it's like composing video game music. But I haven't worked with a real orchestra ever since, so I was pretty wrong about that. Because like you said, it does cost a lot of money.
Yes. And working and having that experience from a retrospect kind of view now, do you feel like it helped you to have worked with an orchestra already, even though you haven't worked with one again, but looking from a composing kind of perspective?
Yeah, because I think I learned very early on to see things from the musician's perspective, and not only my own. Because I remember being quite stubborn back then about what I wanted my music to sound like. And I didn't really think much about, okay, is this even playable on an instrument? Like handing them the sheet music for something, and they were just looking at me, I can't play this.
Oh, okay. That's interesting to get a little bit more, it's like down-to-earth information happening right from the start.
Yeah, that's been really helpful for whenever I'm working with other musicians today. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. No, but I think we have a better glimpse of who you are, how you kind of worked previous all up to this track, at least.
Yeah.
So I think it is good for us to step into and start looking into today's game that we're going to discuss a little bit about.
Cool.
And most likely, I think you will help me about on this one as well. But when we're looking at Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom, this is an arcade puzzle 3D racing game, I would say, to some extent, but it's more of a collectathon type of game, right?
Yeah, definitely a collectathon. I mean, people think it's like, okay, so this is like Crazy Taxi because it's a taxi, but it's very far from it. It has some nods to Crazy Taxi, but it's not a Crazy Taxi game.
No, and one of the things I thought was freaking hilarious that I read from a review somewhere was like, Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom is like that super fun dash jump game that doesn't even have a jump button.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely true, to be honest, because the puzzling in this game is all set surrounding this like boost functionality that you have, or dodge bursts. I don't know exactly what. Let's say burst.
Yeah, and using like ramps to get high up.
Exactly. So you're basically shooting yourself off here and there, and you have this amazing soundtrack to accompany you. And this game was also, so we have that said, was developed by a very small company, to my understanding. It's like 2 people, right?
Yep, that's right. 2 Italian guys.
2 Italian guys. Yeah, I saw a lot of people like discussing where they were from and so on, but I never really found any clarity to.
If you play the game, it shows pretty much where they come from.
But yeah, it's called, the studio they made is called Panic Arcade, right? Or was it the other way around?
Right. Yeah, Panic Arcade.
Panic Arcade. Usually I tend to write these things up, but damn, I went haywire on this episode apparently. No, but I really enjoyed this game. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit more about. Of course, I can only present the things that I saw in the demo, which will also be covered already from the first track, together with a little bit more, of course. So, yeah, but this is a funny, hilarious game. Right from the start, I will highly recommend this to people that do like some sort of craziness and speed to it with an amazing soundtrack.
Yeah, and I think the demo also shows very much of the game and what you're getting for the whole experience as well.
It definitely does. It definitely does. I'm after playing the demo, I'm trying to feel like, what else will they present to me, or will it be more of the same? But I do feel that they're still leaving things out, because considering what I've seen on their social media, what people can do with this, I've only scratched the surface.
Yeah, and I mean, speedrunners are already getting crazy with this game. So,
oh my god, that's crazy. No, but with that said, I think it's time to dive into the first track of the week. You're excited for this one, right?
Let me look at the list. Oh yeah.
Yes, it is the first track. This is one you've selected, and it is called the Bomb Beach. Bomb Beach from Yellow Taxi goes Vroom. And for everybody who is listening to this episode, like the first episode ever, because you were excited about this game and hear a little bit more about the soundtrack. Every time we're having a composer over to discuss more about the specific soundtrack, etc., I'm always presenting right after a track what I usually tend to call my feeling, or as I now will call it, my vibe. So considering Bomb Beach, fanfare, almost superhero-like. I get this like anime-styled opening theme in my head while listening to this track. More specifically, a Sonic-style anime. Combo! Exclamation mark. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a pretty good description, I'd say. And a huge amount of silliness, I'd say, too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, considering what we have with Sonic, Sonic is not just a super serious character itself either, much like this game. And both type of games actually present similarities in speed to my knowledge and what I expected from both of these games.
Yeah, and in terms of seriousness, I said this game doesn't take itself very serious at all. But at the same time, it really does, because the like movement systems and all that it's a very high skill ceiling, and you can be really good at it.
I would say, even to this extent, that when it comes to silliness of this game, it's usually references that become silly. Yeah. The seriousness is still like it's still a very serious story in this, even though it has this overhead silliness with reference and so on.
About Bomb Beach, there are some really distinct parallels drawn to Super Mario 64.
Okay, I see.
I'm not sure if you finished the whole level, but there is even a bomb boss reference to it. And I tried incorporating some of that into the music as well, with some of the sounds I used.
I see.
To get that sort of silly, like if you listen to the brass instruments in the song, you can probably recognize them from sort of what they sound like in Super Mario 64.
I see. Now, I haven't listened that well to the soundtrack, or not as I can just pull out that information and say, yeah, it's like that. For me, the brass instruments that you had in this track, it gave me that fanfare kind of vibe to it. And like I said here, it almost sounded like this superhero-like. It's like we're going somewhere to do that fighting, have that sincerity of doing something useful.
Yeah, but with the brass in this whole soundtrack, actually, I did some things with the brass where I used actual good modern sounds. Modern sampling sounds of brass, like high trumpets and horns and all that, but I mixed them with really old school retro brass sounds to get that punchy retro vibe, but still that superhero fanfare style.
But considering how you got into the project, it would be interesting to start hearing a little bit there. It's like, how did you get in contact with these guys to start working on the music for Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom?
It was through their publisher, those awesome guys, because I worked on a game called Move or Die several years ago, and I scored that game, and they asked me if I was available to score this one as well. So the Panic Arcade developers sent like a document of what they want with the music. Is this something you can do, basically?
Yeah.
And I sent them back. I think I sent them back what would eventually be the main theme.
Okay.
The main menu track. And they loved it, and I got to do the rest of the soundtrack as well.
That's awesome. So considering that you had a document right from the start, I'm guessing they were quite far into development as well then.
They had all the systems in place, and
okay.
But there were many levels that hadn't been done yet. So I began working on this probably 2 years ago or something.
Okay, I see.
And I worked on and off. Whenever they finished a level, I made a track for it, basically.
Yeah.
And they often had like placement music for all the tracks as well. So this is what we want the track to sound like, basically. And they had like a music track.
Did they also have
From
some
something.
references, like you said, Super Mario 64 here for Bomb Beach?
I don't remember. Maybe
Or was
I
it
had
more
a
on your end that you wanted to implement that kind of reference to
No,
it?
they had like the whole Nintendo 64 vibe thing going on for the whole game. So they were very much intentionally wanted to get the bomb. What is the level called? Bomb Battlefield, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bombs
they-
is what the bombs are called. And yeah, Battlefield
Yeah, exactly.
rings a bell in my mind at least.
Yeah, so they actually wanted that for this level.
And now Super Mario 64 fans are turning in their graves like, ah! Like none of us know for sure.
But they also gave me like inspiration slash guideline things for each of the tracks actually.
Okay.
Especially early on when I didn't really have a clear vision of what the full soundtrack would be. So they had like, for example, for the Bomb Beach, they wanted the music to be like the beginning of a new adventure, anticipation, curiosity, but also you're at the beach and there are bombs everywhere. So,
Like it usually is, right?
and they had like a placement track that had like Eurobeat things going on. So I did like a mix of everything.
I see. Yeah. Eurobeat is one of my favorite genres on top of liking rock and roll and metal.
Oh, that's awesome. I wasn't really familiar with Eurobeat at all, so it was a very big challenge for me.
But how did you feel like you tackled that challenge then? Did you have any like specific time during the project where you felt like everything just releases? Like, yeah, now I know exactly what they're looking for, etc. Or was it always like a struggle for you?
Whenever I started working on a new genre, I felt, how am I ever going to make this happen? We're going to get into that later with another track, but for the whole Eurobeat thing, I struggled a bit. But then once I got the hang of what kind of instruments to use, how do they mix together, whenever I got that to click in my mind, it was pretty straightforward. And I could focus on like writing the actual songs and doing fun melodies and stuff.
Okay.
So there were a lot of like production problems I had to tackle before actually getting to write the music.
But even though when we're looking at the full soundtrack here, I need to have it said that it feels like you still have that kind of red thread. Even though you're saying here like you have these different kind of styles for different areas and so on. How was it to actually find and get a good grasp of like this is how the soundtrack should sound like while still having these different genres within it?
I mean, I think I had to learn what the whole game was about. Like we said before, not taking itself too seriously. Have a bit of that silliness in mind all the time. And not to be afraid to like take a completely different route than you'd probably expect. So that's probably more of the red line than the actual sound. So
Great.
because there are some very different styles of genres in this soundtrack, and they shouldn't really mix very, very well together, but they kind of do. I think.
Yeah, they definitely do. Considering that I've listened through the soundtrack multiple times, I feel like it is very coherent to each and every track, even though you have these changes in pacing and BPM, etc. for each and every track. That's what I kind of liked. That's why I was a bit confused at the same time when you said like, yeah, it's different genres and so on. Even though I know of it, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way to some extent, because when making differences to that extent, it usually tends to redirect where a track is going or where a soundtrack is going.
Yeah, and I think there's probably some things that could also like connect the different tracks as well. I mean, I did use a lot of orchestra, for example, and orchestral. I mean, using my orchestral sound on different genres, they kind of tend to merge together as well. So, I mean, I think I have like a sound. You can say that. So if I write like a piano track, it's still my sound, I think. The way I write like melodies and do chords and stuff, harmonies.
But that only proves one thing, and that is that your style of writing is very, I would say, evolutional. And with that said, it's me comparing what you have actually worked on as well previously, and also then releasing this type of track.
I often hear that you can hear that is music written by me. And that's like the best kind of feedback I can get, because finding your own sound as a composer is really difficult. It takes a lot of time, and I feel like I'm very happy about having come to that point like 15 years later.
But it feels also weird then to have, it's like you found your sound, but you found it through video games.
Yeah.
And video games, like we already touched a little bit on, is so different from project to project as well.
Yeah, that's true. Very early on when I started music, I did do some film / short film music as well, and listening back to that, I can still kind of hear in some sense that it's my music. Okay, I know it's my music, but I can still hear in the way I write music that it's from
you hear
me.
the similarities and
yeah. So I think I have like a musical language, I think.
That's nice to hear.
That I speak.
Awesome.
So I just hope someone else understands it.
Yeah, definitely. No, I don't have any further questions surrounding the Bomb Beach. So in my opinion, I think it's time to work onto the next track, if you're up for it.
Yeah, and I think the next track is kind of in the same vein as Bomb Beach.
It is.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the next track that we're going to listen to is, of course, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. No, it's not, but it's Pizza Time. Fading out, Pizza Time. I know this one was a little bit shorter, but I still love it. I still love it.
I'm glad you do.
Yeah, so considering my vibe on this one, it comes, of course, with some similarities to what my vibe was with Bomb Beach, but let's go for it. Aim to the sky, we're going to places. This track starts furious right from the start, like we're on our way to something big. Yet again, giving off that anime-style opening vibe, but with a purpose. It's like anime and Nintendo game, the Starwing / Star Fox game, had a child. That's my vibe for this.
Yeah, that's a good vibe. Did you get any pizza cravings as well?
Of course, every time I'm seeing a name like Pizza Time, it's like instant pizza craving.
Nice.
I really like this track. I think there's still a lot of good tracks, but I think this is one of my favorite ones, and it could be because of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm not saying it, but I'm leaning like a lot towards it.
Yeah, I had a really fun time making this track because at the time of writing it, I had kind of a sense of what I wanted to do with it, like with the sound. I had like a basic understanding of Eurobeat. And I could focus on writing fun melodies. So I think I wrote the whole piece on piano or something at first. I don't really play piano, but I can kind of get like the right chords and do like a melody thing. So
is it still due to PTSD with musician parents? Like that's why you can't really play piano?
No, I just haven't practiced.
So it's your own fault now.
Yeah, it is. Everything's my fault.
Can't blame the parents for everything.
No.
No, but in all shits and giggles. No, but considering this track, when did you make Pizza Time? I mean, it's like when we're looking at the full soundtrack.
It was one of the very early tracks for the game. When I was approached to do the soundtrack, I got like a music sheet, inspiration sheet for the whole demo of like 5 levels or whatever. And I got like a picture for each level and a short description of the level or of what they wanted the music to be.
Okay.
So for this level, they wanted it to be like that adventurous thing, kind of an extension to the Bomb Beach, but a bit more out there, crazy.
But you already said for Bomb Beach, but also for Pizza Time, you had that Eurobeat kind of style to it, the genre style.
Yeah.
It's like since you weren't that used to it, you were starting getting used to it when you worked on it the second time with Pizza Time. But working on something for like the first time and trying to still try to find that red thread throughout it, like what was the hardest thing for you exploring this new Eurobeat?
Probably making all the different musical instruments work together. Like having like an electronic drum beat with synthesizers and particular bass, have that work with an orchestra. It was tricky. Because I've always felt pretty confident in my orchestral writing, but and in electronic music writing as well, but on separate projects. Like,
okay, so you're not mixing them together. Yeah,
I've done it before, but not with like Eurobeat. So I didn't even know if it would work. So it was like a lot of experimentation, and I also, after I had finished like 75% of the soundtrack, I had to go back to many of the very early tracks, such as this one and the Bomb Beach one, and compare those to the later ones I had done.
Okay.
To see, do I need to upgrade this somehow, make the styles more similar? So I had to do a lot of that to continue that red thread.
But that is also usually something that can be hurtful to a soundtrack as well. It's like when you're thinking, like you're taking a test and then you start looking back at it, you change some of the answers, and then you get it like a week after when your teacher has corrected everything, and you see like, oh, I was correct the first time.
Yeah.
Did you have any of those thoughts as well, returning back to and listening?
I definitely had that in mind, because I've been in that position before when I've sent something to a client and they like it, and then I rework this track or whatever for some reason, and I send it again, and they were, why did you do that? I like the original one. So I didn't want that to happen, so I only changed things that I was confident about changing.
Okay.
And mostly added things, I'd say, like making the tracks longer and stuff like that.
How was the discussion between you and the developers here as well?
We have had like day-to-day discussions about the music pretty much the whole journey. Since I also did the sound design for the game, like all the sound effects and stuff like that, there were a lot of implementation things we had to talk about. How does it work technically in the game?
Okay.
Both for the music and for the sound effects. And also I needed the sound effects to work together with the music.
Of course.
So we had to talk a lot. So it wasn't me like sitting in my room and writing music. There were a lot of discussions as well.
And usually in the beginning, when you're starting out a track and so on, do you usually prefer to sit with one track working on that and then it's like present something, oh, this is something cool? Or are you more like a shotgun type of style? It's like, hey, I'm creating 3 different tracks. Hey, is any of them what you're looking for as like a placeholder thingy?
I like when I'm able to work fast. So like it's possible sometimes to punch out a whole track in one day.
Yeah.
Like getting all the main points of the track there. And then I like leaving it for a few days and go back to it and see what I can do better. So I usually work on like 3 or 4 different tracks simultaneously at all times.
Okay. Could these be different genres as well that you're working?
Yeah, they
parallel on?
they can be completely different projects. So
Okay.
while I was doing this soundtrack, I was working on 2 other games as well
Mm-hmm.
in parallel. So I think that also helps me. I mean,
Stay sane.
Yes, yeah, probably, because I mean, listening to a kick drum for 8 hours every day, it takes a toll on the ears and your mind.
Yeah, you
So
get the
sometimes-
tunnel hearing, I guess.
Yeah, and like when you're doing all the mixing and stuff like that as well, you need to take a break and perhaps only write some guitar music. So as I've been fortunate enough to have multiple projects to work on simultaneously.
That sounds great. But considering that, for me, listening to you is like, hey, I work on multiple genres. To me, it sounds chaotic, but I guess that works for you then.
Yeah, that's probably what I like the most about doing this. Doing a whole soundtrack as one genre is really, really fun as well, if it's a genre I feel confident in.
Yeah.
So this project gave me a lot of free reins to do whatever I wanted, basically. So they had like a guideline for me, but they weren't very strict.
Okay, so they were very confident in you as a composer, and since they already listened to what you already can do, they even gave you more free reins in that consideration because they're confident in what you're doing.
Well, I can't speak for them, but I think after a few tracks, they became more and more confident with me. So early on, they probably wanted me more to follow those guidelines and make sure I could do something that they liked for their vision.
Yeah.
But after, I mean, we've become friends since then, and they feel more confident about, okay, do your thing on this track. So that was very reassuring and cool for me to work on something like that.
And I'm also guessing that it can be some sort of, I would say, difficulty to some extent, that it's like you're working full-time as a composer, working freelance, getting new projects from time to time. It's like you never worked with people most of the time, and over time you're creating these bonds and understanding between you and the developers to have more confidence. But I'm guessing it goes to the other way as well. You have confidence in the developers having a true picture of what they want, so it becomes more clear for you.
Yeah, I mean, there are 2 types of projects, basically. Those who do like this, and they give me a lot of free reins to do what I think would work best for the project. And then there are those who don't really know what they want. Or those who really, really know what they want and want something extremely particular. And both are very rewarding, you know, in a sense, because doing something out of trying to fulfill someone's vision exactly can be a real challenge. But once you get there, you feel really good as well.
Yeah, for me, I've been working a little bit as an audio director myself, and I can definitely put myself in those shoes, trying to understand and get my point of views. Like, hey, I'm after this, but I want this as an extra component onto the music. And then what the composer actually pops up with could either be exactly what I'm looking for, or it could not be, or it could be some things that goes for it, and then you just adjust. So I can understand both kind of views from that point of view.
Yeah, and I think for this game, since it is kind of chaotic, I think they wanted me to put my own spin on the music because that would add to the chaos in a sense.
That's awesome as well. One thing that I found particularly interesting as well, I think it was Grant Kirkhope, sorry. He was talking a little bit about one job that he did, and it basically was a company of developers that got him in. It's like, hey, want you to work on this soundtrack. He started working on it, and they were like micromanage him all the time, doing this and that. It's like, oh no, this is not what we're looking for. This is not what we're looking for. This is what we're looking for, etc. But in the end, he came to the conclusions like, why did you employ me? Is it you only employed me because of the name? You didn't want my style added to this, like this game, etc. And this is always something that had me particularly questioning some things when I'm listening to a soundtrack or talking to a composer from time to time. So like the struggle that can happen sometime between composing and making a soundtrack versus what can be presented in a game. Have you ever felt that type of style, like micromanagement, and felt like you lost yourself a little bit when working on a soundtrack?
Not very often. It can happen that you feel like, why did you hire me, kind of thing. I mostly kind of expect that they want me for what I do. And if they don't want that, yeah, you're right. Why do they hire you?
No, I find it interesting because we were talking about this Eurobeat, and since you haven't done any real Eurobeat music yourself, it is, of course, a challenge, and you add your own kind of soul into it. Yeah. And it's interesting that it seems to fit very well. I mean, considering I love these tracks, so...
Yeah, I think my selling point as a composer is, besides doing a lot of orchestral music, is that I am kind of a jack of all trades. So I like doing things that I haven't done before. And I have previously shown that I'm pretty okay at it. So I've been writing a lot of trailer music, for example, and trailer music are usually very different in genre. So I think maybe that's a reason they felt confidence.
It could be. We can only imagine what they're thinking or what they thought about it.
Those Italian minds.
Those Italian minds. But one thing we know for sure is that we're not going to listen to the same type of track in the next track that pops up now. So let's bring in a little bit of the broadness that we talked about early in the episode, because right now we're listening to two tracks that are very similar to each other.
Yeah.
So the next track we're going to listen to in this week's episode is yet again one track that you've selected, and it is Cubicle Concerns. Spooky track. Yes, that was Cubicle Concerns. Such a dangerous track, man.
Yeah, it's a very sad place of the game.
Oh,
sad
spoilers. So my vibe for this one, even though you already said sad, is gonna be more interesting as I'm going to read my vibe now, because a very dramatic song that gives off a vibe of danger.
Ooh.
For me, this track reminds me a whole lot of the game Henry Hatsworth in Puzzling Adventure, the DS game, and specifically the boss battle themed Banson's aria. A boss battle with a charming singing stud. Anyway, back to the track. The chosen string instrument surely gives off an emotional touch, but the brass, even a choir I think I'm hearing in this one, gives off a large portion of danger when it comes to this track. But this track, we also hear some sort of vibration sounds. Sounds like type of a saw that you would get when you play on it. I'm a little bit unsure, but anyway, in the end, it kind of gives off this alien-like sound from time to time. It's like it comes and beams you up.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
It's a bit long outline, but let's hear. What's your take on this?
It's a long vibe, but you're pretty much there. I mean, the area where you're at is like the headquarters of the main villain. So you're outside of that building, and everyone around you are very sad, and obviously there's dangers inside.
No aliens though.
The main character is called Alien Mosque.
There we had it. Yes.
The main villain, I'd say.
And I don't know about you if you ever heard of the game Henry Hatsworth by any chance.
I have not. No.
You have not. It's like just to have it clear for everybody, so you have a small understanding. It's like an old man adventure style type of game, very much like a Mega Man game. But you play this really old man who's in a gentleman's club. And in this boss battle, you have this Banson's aria. It's a singing boss throwing around like anchors and so on. But the singing part is such a good, like a big thing.
Yeah.
And the most hilarious thing, as you were portraying here, that, hey, the developers, they're from Italy. This character is also from Italy.
Oh.
So he's singing in like Stravato and so on, in like Italian terms. And it just makes the whole thing more hilarious now, as I didn't actually know for 100% that they were Italian.
Yeah. I mean, didn't the pizza give them off?
I mean, turtles have pizza. They're not Italian.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm not gonna make full-fledged like suggestions based on the name. I'm not gonna assume.
So the kind of UFO instrument you were talking about is...
Yes, it felt like a saw. Like when you bend the saw and get the vibration sound from that. When you have like a string pulling on a saw.
Have you heard of the theremin before?
Yeah, theremin, yes. I know that one. I've listened to the Swedish band Detektivbyrån.
Yeah.
They used one.
Exactly. So that's the kind of vibe you get from that. Just to hint at what's inside of that big building in front of you. But I mainly chose this track because I think it shows my passion in writing orchestral music. Because that's something I really enjoy doing, and doing like epic things like this is really satisfying to me.
But considering what you had in the document for this one, were they also presenting like, hey, we want something dramatic, like, hey, you're going to meet the big bad?
No, it was more like, this is a very depressing place. So from having done basically only happy tunes before this, it was a big jump to making something that felt sad and depressing and a lot of tension, but still kind of have that silliness to it. In some sense. I'm not sure if I succeeded, but I think that theremin, I mean, it's a pretty cliche sound to use for a UFO, but we wanted that cliche sound for it as well.
But on your own end, do you feel like the seriousness and depression is like, what in this track do you feel adds the biggest like vibe or understanding of depression within the instruments on this one?
Oh, good question.
So just to hear from your perspective what you think, and then I can add mine.
Maybe depression is a very harsh word to use. I think I looked at, you mentioned Grant Kirkhope before. He was actually a big inspiration for this whole soundtrack.
Okay.
Maybe it doesn't show too much, but I pictured kind of Gruntilda, the villain in Banjo-Kazooie, Evil Witch. And I think I had her in mind when I wrote this one for some reason. And also I had some in the back of my head. I'm not sure if you've seen Wallace and Gromit.
I have.
Yeah, the main theme of that track is very happy, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't have it so clear in my... It was a long time ago since I was Wallace and Gromit.
In any case, it's a very happy kind of sounds. like a German brass band thing. Almost.
Yeah.
With like tubas going bum 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 bum. So I kind of mixed that into this track as well to get that sort of silliness to it, yet doing it in a very serious manner.
Yeah. No, for me, when I'm listening to this track and thinking about sadness or depression, something that pulls the attitude or your emotional stability down, I would say the trumpets adds the most.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, for me, when I'm listening to the trumpets and trying to isolate them, it gives off the vibe for me listening to Fantasia, for example, Disney's old Fantasia, which is also so weird because Disney is such a bright like movie and a lot of vibrant colors, but Fantasia was a very dark thing going on and very emotional. So you really had this contrast of what Disney did or added to that. So me listening to this and having that kind of portray and thought in mind, I feel like the trumpets are adding the most.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we have a few tracks in this soundtrack that are very much more on the serious side. And I think it's mostly because we wanted that contrast between the very, very, very silly music and the not so silly music. Because the game itself stays silly the whole time.
Yeah.
But having that contrast in the music makes it even more fun, I'd say.
It does. And considering like we have 27 tracks on the OST, I'm guessing these are, I don't think there's any like super hidden tracks or something like that is not added to the soundtrack, or is it?
No,
from the game?
There is like a trailer track that's like a variation of one of the tracks, but no, nothing hidden bonus tracks or something like that.
So we still have a lot of different kind of tracks in this one, and I really like that so many of these are based on environments. Even though you have characters that are already presented inside the game, you rather have an environmental tracks rather than having a theme, for example, for the little car per se.
Yeah, we don't really have a theme for the car. You're right. I mean, we have a one track called Psycho Taxi, but that's more of a general theme for the whole game, I'd say.
Yeah.
But the car itself, in the game, the car doesn't really have a... I mean, does a taxi have a soul?
I don't know. I mean, it does have personality.
Yeah, it doesn't... the personality definitely shows. Like when you collect something, it does this little thing where it looks happy, even though it's just a car.
Exactly. It's like you can tell it has an arm when it collects these gears.
Yeah. But I think we wanted the taxi to like be you wanted the taxi to go into a living world already that had its own sound, that was its own thing, and the taxi being like a guest of that world.
And I think it's time for us to talk a little bit more about a little bit of the story of this game. I think it's suitable now that we're standing in front of Elon Musk's big tower, I guess.
Yeah, so a lot of the things in Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom, they are powered by oil, like cars and all that are powered by oil, but oil itself has been corrupted by some weird green stuff. And the story isn't much more elaborate than that. You have to collect the gears so that you can eventually go and face the one who has corrupted all the oil.
And the only fair reason that why you can go around and be that crazy taxi that you are, or psycho taxi,
of course,
due to the fact that you are a spring-loaded car. So people need to rewind you up, which you will notice quite early in the game. And I just love the idea of being so... It's a silly idea, but I love it because it does remind me of old toys.
Yeah. And you're also constructed by the very legally distinct Morio character.
Yeah. Which everybody can see as like a main character, otherwise than the car. Now, the names in this game for everything... most likely it's a reference to another character from another game with every character in this game, from what I could tell from the demo.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
So a lot of Super Mario 64 references and a lot of Super Mario Galaxy and Odyssey references as well.
Will we see a Yoshi reference, you think?
No, I don't think actually.
No.
Not that I can remember. No, I don't think so. I'd have to ask
Instead
them
of
to add
Yoshi,
that.
it's gonna be Yashi.
Yashi. Legally distinct message.
like a Japanese guy who's sick
Yeah.
all the time, maybe. He's been eating eggs all the time, but he couldn't show them down. I don't know.
That's perfect.
But also on the topic when we're talking about cars and so on, I noticed from one of your posts that people are already started modding this, and I thought you will be the one to present this one because it is absolutely super cute in my opinion.
Yeah, so all of the NPCs, there's like a hub world in the game, and a lot of the NPCs in the game are actual developers or like people from the publishing team or stuff like that. So they have made like 3D models of me and the developers themselves and some other people. And someone in the community took my 3D character and put me in another car kind of thing that they modeled and modded me into being a playable character in the game. So that's fun.
No, I love that information and the fact that somebody did that. I mean, that, in my opinion, that's like one of the biggest honors to have a fan of a game.
Yeah, that felt pretty crazy.
And usually when it comes down, this is the main reason why I'm actually doing this podcast. Usually people are never talking or giving any credits to the composer. You have a freaking go-kart, man! Or Ferrari, I don't know, F1 car. It looked like a F1 go-kart.
Yeah, so
almost.
they modeled that just to put me in it. So that was fun.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Now I wish I was modeled into this game, but no, but I love that fact that they did that. And for this track, I really loved and adored this on like another type of level, and it's so nice. For me, who love Eurobeat, so of course Bomb Beach and Pizza Time is gonna be like high up on my like list from this soundtrack.
Awesome.
But this one comes with another type of style, and that's why it kind of reaches pretty high, because it really does its thing. And apparently it seems like I'm not really 100% spot on, but I'm very close to what it was supposed to be. Yeah, but it felt good. So I think for the next track, I think it's time to go to that one.
Yeah, sure.
So the next track we're going to listen to is also a little bit down to earth, I would say. But it's called Weightless. I do hope nobody fell asleep to Weightless. My vibe for this one, this is the black sheep of the tracks. There's not a whole lot of track, but that lowers the BPM on this OST. But this track becomes very emotional, very much like this one. But it is beautiful, it is neat, and this track gave me like a great credit vibes. I'm not 100% sure, but this track does have some melody that seems like it's repeating from another track, but I'm not sure 100% which one it is. But I'm guessing it could be some similarities to Fasten Your Seatbelt. Is that correct or not?
You are very much correct, and you're pretty much the only one who has got it right.
Woohoo!
Yeah. I sneaked in that melody.
How come you sneaked it into this track?
Because I felt it was impossible to get that red thread without actually incorporating some of the prior tracks into it. Because the style itself is so different. Like, it's just a piano track.
Yeah.
How do I keep that red thread without actually pulling something from one of the other tracks?
And you, usually when it comes to soundtracks and so on, it all depends on the video game itself. It's like, does this game actually let genre bending happen or not?
Yeah.
So, for example, it all depended on which kind of situation this one would be presented in. I don't know if it would be any sort of spoiler if you know where this one is played.
It would be, yes. But I can say that you are weightless in this area. So it's not a very... I mean, most of the tracks are very hectic and stuff is going on everywhere. You can talk to people. You can drive around people like Crazy Taxi. And you collect gears right and forth and collect coins. But this is a very, very slow-paced track. And level.
Okay.
So it works.
So the track itself is supposed to comprehend a little bit more what you're experiencing within the game then.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Because usually one thing that I've started noticing a lot more as well over time now is either you try to make some sort of contrast or you try to compensate. By compensating, you usually have something similar to the experience you're having, while you're having a contrast, you're having more like black and white.
Yeah, this is more like to get into like the symbiosis of the area you're in, and maybe even reflect back on the journey you've progressed through so far, which is why I liked also using that melody from the main theme.
Yeah.
So you kind of get a vibe of, I've heard this before, but I don't know where.
And most of these tracks, a lot of them is around between 2 to 3 minutes long as well. Considering what I played in demo, you can definitely spend those 3, 4, 5, almost 10 minutes in a level without any worries.
Yeah.
But one thing I really liked, and yet again, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, you're actually adding some sort of filter and so on when you're diving down into water.
Yeah, that's something the developers did, which I thought was really cool. And this filter also comes into play once this weightless track starts, because instead of using that filter on the music, it's used on all the sound effects. So everything else get muffled, and you hear these very modest piano notes.
So now I'm getting like a huge vibe that we're not just in a gravity-less area, we're in space. That's what I'm thinking now.
We might be in space, yeah.
We may be in space, yeah. Love it. No
Only
spoilers.
those who buy it can see, because it's not in the demo.
It is not. No, but I really like this track. It's not my favorite one from it, because I usually tend to like the more speedy ones.
Yeah, I can understand that, absolutely.
But it is coming down a little bit down to earth, like I said before and prior to the playing this track.
Yeah.
But I really like the fact that you actually added some sort of relatable track to it.
Yeah.
Not just for the fact because it was fitting per se, but to actually have that turnaround to some extent. For me, there are some composers I talk to that implement a similar melody into other tracks, so they have relatable tracks to some extent, is to refer to a main character or a character itself happening in these surrounding areas. But in this case, I mean, Fasten Your Seatbelt is not a main character theme, but of course you will hear this track from time to time.
Yeah.
And yet again, we're coming in. How come you selected that specific melody for this one? Was it just because it was best suited for what you were going after? Or do you have any other situation going on in your process?
Do you mean for this particular track?
For this specific track, yes.
Yeah. No, I don't think. I mean, I wanted all the different levels to have its own identity within the music. So I couldn't really pick a melody from one of the other levels, because that would steal a bit from that identities.
Yeah.
feeling. So, I mean, Fasten Your Seatbelts, which is the main menu track, it doesn't really have an identity besides the main menu. So it felt natural to borrow it from there. And
Okay.
like I said, I wanted you to reflect on the whole journey and not on a particular level.
Yeah.
So that felt kind of...
Oh, that's really interesting. I like that.
And I'm
that
usually,
answer.
like you said, I'm very used to working like that. You have reoccurring themes for different characters and stuff like that. But we couldn't really do that here. And instead, I had to focus on like each particular level and giving that level its own identity. So that was really a new experience for me.
Now, how did you feel? How did you find yourself in that type of experience? Was it hard getting into that kind of sense of experience, or did it feel more natural to you?
It wasn't really hard, but it did. I had to do a lot more composing because I had to do like new catchy melodies for each track, and like trying to think of 27 catchy melodies. I mean, it takes time when most projects have maybe 3 that you need to remember. So I had to work a lot on the actual composing.
But I'm guessing also it was a little bit more helpful that you have a little bit of genre bending in this game as well. So you're not like, I need to proceed 27 Euro dance or your beat tracks, and then trying to like, oh no, I already made this track.
Yeah, and I think also the listener would be insane if there were 27 Eurobeat tracks.
Hey, talk to yourself. I would love it.
Yeah, there are a lot of accessibility options in the game, but there are no accessibility options for the music. So sorry for that.
No worries. No, but I think it's an interesting idea to talk a little bit around, and it of course brings a little bit more perspective from you as a composer. That's why I think it's so important to discuss and talk a little bit about these things, because most of the times I don't think composers are actually reflecting over this to that extent, because it becomes... When you worked as a composer for a while, it becomes very natural. You don't really take a step back and actually reflect over it.
I think you're very right, because I mean, most of the things I've said now aren't really things I think about when I write music for a project. These are things that when I look back at those projects and reflect on the kind of work I did, these are the things I must have thought, like unintentionally. Because it's not like I thought, okay, I'm writing this piano track, I need to borrow this main menu track because... No, I didn't really think about that. That's something that probably came natural to me back then. And now makes sense for these reasons I've talked about.
So while working within a project, you have this kind of sense of survivability kind of ish. It's like you're trying to understand what's important and what's needed all the time and go from there, from step to step, without having a larger or deeper thought into it. But when looking at it from a retrospect, after post-mortem on a soundtrack, you can grab them better with that sort of understanding them.
Yeah, I think so. I don't really think too hard about why I do something. I write something for a scene or for a level or for a character because I think it fits with this melody or these instruments in this particular order. So I usually only focus on what it sounds like. And then the meaning comes afterwards, often.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because if I try to think of a meaning and like a purpose, I mean, it can work, but I usually get stuck on that. How do I fit these tunes, these melody notes into this specific emotion? I mean, that's a really difficult thing to even trying to imagine. So I prefer like playing something maybe on the guitar or the piano and then think, what does this feel like?
Yeah, I think this is also why we're so, I would say, it's so easy for us to have these many composers out there in the world, because we're all unique and different in so many ways.
Yeah.
So even though writing in some forms are not natural to you and you need to work harder on those, there might be other composers that are really excelling in that, but of course what they're lacking you excel in.
Yeah, I think so too. And like you giving your take on the vibe for each track. I mean, your vibe kinda is pretty much what I've been going for as well. So I mean, that must mean it works.
Yeah,
in some sense.
Yeah, if you feel like the vibe I'm getting is most likely what other people may portray it or may understand from it. So I mean, this is also one of the reasons why I do this. Is like I'm trying to put on paper, or in text at least here, my understanding of what I thought of this song and how it kind of touched and made me emotional, etc. And it's so much fun for me to hear from the composer, and it's like, yeah, it was exactly what I was thinking of, and it gives a better understanding to the composer as well. Like I actually got to where I wanted to go.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I love so much about music, is that it's so subjective.
Yes, which also makes it really, really hard.
Yeah.
Like, for example, do you ever take your music anywhere else? For example, if you're working on something, I know you have a partner. Do you ever let your partner listen to the music you're working on? And it's like, oh, how do you feel about this?
Absolutely.
Do I need to change something?
Yeah, sure. I often play this for my wife, and she, pretty much like you did, gives her take on the vibe she's getting from it. And that's sometimes very much spot on, because I try not to tell her what I think I want the track to be. And sometimes the vibe she's getting is not at all what I'm going for. And that makes me think, okay, maybe this isn't right. Or I think, okay, this is her subjective take. And maybe this is fine anyways.
Yeah, definitely. No, I find it could be really, really hard trying to... So that's why it usually tends to come down to an actual composer knows what they're doing. In your case, you do you. And then also a developer that understands like, oh, this is the game we're doing. And both of them will need to kind of correlate to whatever type of thing it tries to be.
Yeah.
It's like, what if we made this game, but we made it in a whole other genre? Let's say we did everything in waltz style. Yeah. It's like, it would be very weird, of course. But if we did the whole track, so it's in pure metals, like symphonic metal and thrash metal and so on, we would have a whole other vibe as well for it.
Yeah.
But in this sense, and from what I hear from this OST, it has the red thread, but it also comes very close to what the game is portraying as well, which is only helping the soundtrack, in my opinion, and even the game, of course, because it kind of goes hand in hand. It's a two-way thing.
Yeah, I think that's what I strive for most when I do soundtrack, to make the music raise the whole experience of the game. And also, if the game can raise the music as well, that's great. But my purpose is to elevate the game. That's my main purpose.
Yeah, okay. And on a nice segue then on making unique tracks, I think the last track of the week is going to be definitely the weirdest of them all, but also one that also sticks out and is very interesting. Many sections. So I think let's jump into the last track of the week then.
Cool.
Awesome. Let's jump into Gym Gears. And I'm gonna read my vibe like straight from. I'm not gonna put any other comments on this one now. It is almost impossible for me not to get the feeling that I've heard a similar track before. It surely gives me the vibe of these transition videos we've been seeing online, when people look casual and then look badass afterwards. It's like when you have like a small dog and they throw it, and then you have like the Black Panther and so on. You might know what I'm talking about. The track is dancey to an like hard bass level, if we're talking like true Slavs. But we have lyrics to this track, which, well, in the beginning I didn't fully grasp, but I am hearing, pump that iron now, feel the burn, fuel those muscles, pasteurized bread, pumping iron till you're dead, head, shoulder, knees, toes, knees, toe, and knees. And it's just goddamn hilarious.
Yeah.
Because this track is so freaking weird to listen to. I can't know. As you notice, my vibe was not on any specific emotion or any specific place or anything. I have no freaking clue where we are in this game listening to this.
Yeah, you're just slurping in the whole music thing.
But the lyrics is freaking hilarious.
Yeah, so at this stage of the game, I think it's in the demo actually, you are at the gym.
At the gym? I don't remember going to a gym in the
you
demo.
You can get there from the hub area outside.
Okay. Yeah, I only went to the room where you can put on hats.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I went to tutorial, and I also went to, is it Mario Island? You can access.
Oh yeah, Mario's
somewhere
Island,
there?
yeah.
Mario's Island, and then also Bomb Beach.
Yeah.
Those were the ones, and then I drove around a little bit, but I didn't enter any other room other than the hat area.
Yeah, so that's pretty fun thing about this game, because people drive around and they see like, oh, there's an entrance there, and there's like a whole new world in there. That seems like, oh, is this a hidden secret? No, that's a level.
Nice.
So this is like the place where people work out, and we need to have workout music. So I was pitched to do like, I had not heard this genre before, but it's called funk.
Funk, okay, yeah.
PH.
It's funk and PH funk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think this is like the TikTok era kind of thing.
I see.
It's the genre itself is basically you take a cowbell, like the percussion instrument cowbell, and you tune it to a specific note, and you put a lot of effects on it and equalizers and stuff to like boost a certain tone in that cowbell to make it sound in a specific way, and then you take like very, very heavy drums and you smash everything together.
Oh my god.
Super hard, and you have like a rapping thing underneath that is also completely broken by effects.
So is it you that do the talking?
Yeah, I usually don't do stuff with lyrics or where I have to open my mouth, but I had to do something with this track, so I basically took head, shoulders, knees, and toes and wrote some stuff around that.
No, when I was listening to it, at the beginning, I thought it was just like mumbo jumbo, like throat singing kind of stuff, something like. I mean, it could have been that easy.
Yeah.
But when I was actually listening to this and going to write down my vibe for this, I started listening to it. I wrote the first thing. And then I just closed my eyes, leaned backwards, and started listening to it. I was like, open my eyes, everything shot in a surprising emotion on my face. And I was like, it's actually text.
Yeah.
And then I just increased the volume. I was like, what the hell are they singing? And it was like, yeah, it's the cheesiest lyrics, but I freaking love them. Every time I was like, the feel the burns, like pump that iron, feel the burn. The feel the burn, it was so weird. I had a hard time hearing that specific one. So in the beginning, I was actually writing, pump that iron now, something, fuel those muscles, pasta, rice, and bread. But then later in the end of the song, you can actually hear "Feel the Burn" a bit clearer.
Yeah, I kind of intentionally made the lyrics so that you can't really hear what I say, because I felt like, okay, initially I needed to write lyrics. What should they be about? I'm very self-conscious about writing lyrics for music. So how do I approach this? I can't really write something that is serious. Are there even serious workout songs? I'm not sure. I don't really work out myself, so
not to my knowledge. That there's a Japanese band called Deadlift Lolita.
Oh yeah.
It was two bodybuilders, one Japanese and one from Australia, who is also a wrestler, called Ladybeard.
Oh, that's perfect.
He worked together with this bodybuilding poster girl from Japan, and they sung pumping songs about drinking protein and so on. It was hilarious. So they had one song called Pump Up Japan, like, oh, I'm just old and I can't do anything. Just pump up Japan, you can do it. It's hilarious and cute at the same time. It's the lolly metal style.
Yeah, so I pretty much felt I can't really do that, so I basically took head, shoulders, knees and toes because it works with the whole silliness theme.
It does. I mean, I only got the head and toes thing right at the end. For me, or us in Sweden, we have Mora Träsk.
Oh yeah.
So for me, even though it's an old classic, for me, every time I'm hearing that, it's always Mora Träsk for me.
Nice.
And it's so hilarious. They're still active.
Oh, they are. That's insane.
Yes, they are.
I wonder what kind of gigs they get.
They do a lot for kids.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Still. Not VHS like I had when I was young. Yes, I'm that old, people.
Good time. So am I.
No, but considering this, like a room for gym freaks, basically.
Yeah,
it is in the hub world. Was this something they added in just for the fun, or is there actually something real happening?
Yeah, it's a pretty important place to go to for the whole mechanics of the game, because the game itself, you have all the mechanics from start.
Yeah,
but like I said very early on, there is a very high skill ceiling. So with the mechanics, you can do a lot of things if you experiment. And by going to the gym, you will learn pretty important thing you can do with the mechanics.
Okay, that's interesting. You actually have like a test room then, which is
the gym. I mean, it's not really a test room, because there are multiple levels in the game where you learn new things about those mechanics. But the gym itself is where you learn how to basically jump without using a jump button.
Well, I saw the trailer. I learned from there.
Yeah.
You're in an angle, and then you push the speed, and you go wild up in the air, and you have no fucking clue where you're
But you can even do like backflips and double jumps and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's crazy. No, I definitely need to play more of this game. I just need to complete other games first.
Yeah.
But no, definitely after playing the demo, not only for just the OST, but both OST and the game end up pretty high on my like wish list, because I freaking adore, because the silliness and funness. I would say it comes down to just having a good product that is stable in steering and controls, but also have a fun way of doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like once you get into it, it's very hard to put down, because it's very addictive.
Yes. But with Bomb Beach, for example, there's a lot of different things happening. Just in the demo, there's a lot of things happening. So you do one thing, and all of a sudden, even though you're utilizing the same controls, it feels like you're playing a different game. Yeah. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody else does not know. But they will know if you play the demo. Wink, wink, people. I mean, it's free. So it's free. People should definitely check it out if you have the ability to do so. Because from what I understand, this is only PC, right?
For now, it's only available on Steam and Steam Deck.
And hopefully we will get it on more.
I hope so, if enough people buy it.
That is usually what it ends up in. Like, the more people that can support it and so on, of course, the game itself going to have better reach. Because it does cost a lot to just port them. It's not, now it's for PC. Yeah. No, it's not just one button solution. Yeah, there's a lot of criteria that goes in for people releasing on different consoles and so on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is very important that the developers actually get purchases. So people play the demo. If you like them, purchase them. If you like the OST, definitely purchase this one as well, or just listen on Spotify if you don't want to purchase it itself. It will help, Jacob.
Yeah, it's available pretty much everywhere.
Yes. As long as you earn some money, I'm happy with it because you're worth it.
Thank you, thank you. No, but I basically get paid for writing the music as well. So that's my to get more into that, how working as a composer actually works. I get paid for writing the music, and then whatever I make extra, that's super really fun. And that makes me feel appreciated and like want to do these form of releases, because I put a lot of work into the actual releases, like creating all the cover art thing and doing all the distribution and all that. It's really rewarding to see that people are listening to it.
Yeah. Have you heard anybody making like a remix of any of your tracks so far? I know it's still early though, but
yeah, there were a few remixes actually prior to launch.
What was there any specific one that you were like, oh, that one was really cool because it was? I would say if you look at something that was different that you didn't expect.
Yeah, I think there was a guy called Game and Sound. I think that's his Game and Sound, on YouTube and on X, who did a very cool cover of Fasten Your Seatbelt.
Okay.
So like a classical rock style, video game style music.
Ooh.
Very, very cool. And then there was another person called CR Guitar who made like a acoustic guitar cover of that same track. And it was amazing.
I guess that could be quite serene almost to some extent. Like,
yeah, but the track itself is super fast, so he is playing very fast as well.
Okay, so he's playing. Okay, I thought it was drawing it down a little bit on the BPM.
No. He's doing what it's supposed to be.
Speed acoustics, 100%.
And then the publisher got. I'm not sure if you know Mega Ran.
Yes, I know Mega Ran. Yes,
they got him to do an original track for the game as well.
No, now that you mentioned it, I think I saw something posted somewhere. If you reposted it, maybe, or something.
Yeah,
like that.
That's probably true. He did a very cool trap where he's rapping and stuff. So
yeah, Mega Ran is always cool to
really
have
cool
on
guy.
Different. Not my favorite type of, since I'm not that much into rap per se, but I really love and adore most of the work that he does.
Yeah,
even though I'm not that rapping type of guy.
I hope I'll get him to work on a collab with Jim Gears to replace my stupid lyrics.
So he will be saying the same thing still, or
yeah.
His new voice.
New voice, better voice.
That would be amazing, though. That would be amazing. No, but I think we're starting to clear a little bit more about your processes, your work on this amazing soundtrack. Is there anything else you feel like I've missed as we've been talking about this soundtrack for more than an hour?
I think I have learned more about myself than you have learned about me, so I'm super happy with this speak.
No, I mean, doing a podcast talking about your work, I mean, is a two-way crossing as well. I mean, I'm learning a lot everybody's listening, learning a lot about you and your way of composing and so on. Maybe some people out there are struggling a lot with how they compose and so on, and might get a good idea from how you compose.
Yeah, and I mean, if anyone who's listening feel like they have questions they would want to ask, they can feel free to reach out to me as well.
How can they do that?
Through whichever channel I'm using. I'm mostly on Discord and X nowadays. Or email, of course. So there is a link tree where you can get most of that. Otherwise, you can just search for my name on Google and you will find me everywhere, because no one is called Jacob Lincke in the whole world, I think.
A very unique name. I like that one as well. Your last name, I kind of like it. Like we talked about before started, you have met some people that just say Link.
Yeah.
But for me, Lincke. But since I'm Swedish, I think I'm more used to have that E sound.
Yeah, and it's from my father's side, and he's from Canada, so and he says Lincke, so I trust him.
Everybody else fails.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's amazing. Oh. Or like how people can mispronounce Canada.
Yeah, Canada.
Like, what?
That's fun.
Canada. It's so weird, but still hilarious.
Yeah, but I feel super happy about this being a part of this episode. So thank you for having me.
No worries, no worries. I still have 2 questions, and these are usual questions that I think I will make like a usual thing to ask right at the end of this. Like, first of all, what was the hardest thing to do when you're looking back on this soundtrack that you felt like, oh, maybe there were things I could have done to make it better?
Oh man, that's a good question.
And don't say album, that would be weird because I like it.
Ooh, what was the hardest thing?
Like, did you experiment with any new tool or something like that you felt like, oh shit, I really need to dig deeper into this, but I don't have the time?
I mean, the most difficult thing probably is, and it is with every new project, is taking on a new different genre or style. Because you have no idea what you're doing, and you're researching, trying to find out what makes a genre. And it's very, very difficult sometimes, but it's also what I like about it, because it's super rewarding when you get it right. And another thing that I usually struggle with when I work on games is getting into actually playing the game itself, because mostly the games I work on are very, very half finished. So
yeah,
it's difficult getting into how to play the game. What should I feel in this area? What should I do here? What should the music be? And I didn't feel like that with this game, because it was instantly fun. So I could I could open like I got access to the like working project files. So I could play the game in a very, very early state and like jump from levels to levels to try out different things. And I mean, it's difficult learning all that stuff, how things work in the engine and all that, but I think I'm more used to it being a problem than it was this time, because it was so much fun playing the game.
So you would say your musical composition is kind of a bit more on par with this type of project as the game is played?
Yeah, I think so, because when I can play the game, I get a much better sense of it, rather than just seeing like a picture of you.
Yeah.
Like
I understand.
Playing the game gives me so much more.
So on the contrast to having a hard part of it, what was the more fun, easy part that you can take from this project that you think you can apply on projects to come in the future?
I mean, communication was very easy with these 2 developers, and having like a day-to-day communication with. I mean, we felt like we were on the same wavelength of what we wanted, and I mean, that's maybe not something I can bring to the next project, but more look back on and appreciate, because you never know what kind of project you're gonna work on in the future. But I get like sense of appreciation of how important it is to have great communication between myself and the developers, because it gives for a much better project in the end. I
would say having good communication brings clarity.
Yeah,
and
that's a good way. It
doesn't matter what it is, but yeah, if you have a clear understanding of what they are after, either through a document well deserved, or having that day-to-day understanding of what you're after and how processes are going, that helps a lot.
Yeah, you said it a lot better than me.
I'm used to it, because working day to day with developers and working with disciplines that all, not every day understand each other's languages.
Yeah.
Like talking between having an artist and a programmer. The language barrier sometimes, even though they speak the same language, it's barriers.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm Swedish and these guys were Italian, and we kind of met by doing it in English, and it worked really well.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So yeah, do you feel like there's something else I missed now, talking about surrounding this soundtrack?
No, I don't think so. I'm super happy. So if you want to check it out, do check it out. And please let me know what you think about it, because I love getting people to reach out. Either to say what they think about the music, or if they want to just hang out to talk. Like on Discord or whatever.
And I guess you will hang out in my Discord a while at least.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll see if people will be talking a little bit to say what they think of the game or the soundtrack.
Yeah, I just learned you had a Discord, so that's super fun.
And of course I have. I mean, we're making a community that is inclusive, and we try to have as many composers that guest the episodes to come in here and also be part of this community. And of course, as I want to cover all the releases everybody's doing, I'm still just one person.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things that is great to have with all the composers is they can actually have another forum to post on where they know a lot of VGM lovers are.
Yeah. I'd be super happy to hang out there.
Definitely. Also, before we close down this episode, one of the amazing things, Jacob has given us 2 codes for the OST, which can be redeemed over at Bandcamp, and these will be given as a giveaway to 2 of our amazing Patreon backers that we have. So if you're interested in having a chance of getting one of these soundtracks code, then feel free to support this podcast all over on Patreon as well.
Hooray!
So with that, we're closing down a little bit more on the specifics of this game. Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom.
Also very good name, I must say.
Yeah, freaking love and adore it. When I heard the track, the name of the game, I was like, I will never forget this game name, because it is so stupid. It's great.
Yeah, and you know exactly what you're gonna get.
It's like, I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog. It could be Hedgehog Goes Room.
Yeah.
Could have been, but it's not. It's Yellow Taxi Goes Room. It's amazing. Like, you already have marketing right there. Great name.
I have a track that's called Gotta Go Relatively Quickly.
Yeah.
That's a tiny reference to Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah. Gotta go fast. Exactly. No, it's amazing. No, but other than that, is there anything you can talk a little bit more about where you are right now? Any upcoming project that you want to highlight, etc.? If you have anything?
Yeah, sure. So I have a few projects that I can't really talk much about because reasons that are on paper.
NDA.
Yeah, but I'm working on a game called Detective Dana, which is a very very cool project by a studio called Vice Beast. And it's a South Arabic video game company that's doing like a Phoenix Wright kind of game.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
So
you play...
Are we getting jazzy vibes then?
No, not really.
Maybe.
But you get a lot of guitars and
a lot of guitars.
Cool stuff. So I'm working on that right now, and I'm almost finished with this soundtrack. I'm not sure when it's gonna get released. But
well, I will definitely cover it when it releases.
Awesome. And I will post about it as well on my channel, so people will find it. But it's a very fun project, and I'm working on a few, but those are not music related kind. I've done a lot of sound design stuff lately. So I work with a company called Raw Fury, which is a publisher.
Ah, yes, I know of them.
So I do a lot of sound designs for those guys. Really fun stuff.
Okay, I can only guess. No, I hope to get more. I know a couple of people from Raw Fury because I've been trying to get in contact with them, but the contacts I've been trying to contact lately doesn't seem to be that active on the media. I've reached out to them.
Yeah.
Because it would be interesting to see if I can get in contact with more publishers in order to get a hold of composers and studios for indie games, for example, to have in the podcast.
I mean, publishers themselves rarely have their own composers, but they probably have the contacts to the games.
That's because publishers usually want more marketing, and if marketing is free, I don't see why they should complain.
I have no idea why people aren't interested in this. It's super fun doing these things, so
yes.
It's a win-win for everyone.
I'm having a blast as well.
Other than that, I'm hopefully getting to work on another very cool project, which I can't say anything about on the record.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yes. But cool projects incoming.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm happy with that. I mean, first of all, I'm just happy that it goes well for you. When we talked in 2017, it was a little bit like, oh, you worked on these games and you're currently working on this game that is about to have a release some point in the future. And then the game released a couple of years later almost.
Yeah.
It was for development for a long time.
And that's like what it always happens within game development.
It does.
Things get pushed back over and over again.
No, but I'm happy to hear that you're in a good place right now.
Yeah.
Considering where the whole development sphere is
I mean,
going
the industry
right now.
is going, I'm not sure which direction, but it's going somewhere.
Yeah. we can definitely, everybody in the industry can definitely see this meme, like, this is fine with a dog drinking and fires everywhere.
Yeah. Like, I think it was today, a whole bunch of studios got laid off.
Yes, when we're recording this, Microsoft went out with closing down a couple of studios and having layoffs on some other studios.
Super sad.
Yes, it is. But it is what it is. And theoretically, we can blame on anything and everything at the same time. But in the end, we are not Microsoft. We do not make those calls. Nobody else working at Microsoft, or majority of them, does not make those calls. In the end, of course, it's sad to see other colleagues and people within our disciplines and areas to go, of course.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Which is why I like working with indie games, because we rarely see that kind of, not on that scale at least.
I agree on that. It almost sounded like I wasn't agreeing, but I am agreeing. I felt like I almost sounded unsure in my own voice. It's like, is he really meaning that? No, but in all honesty. No, but I think it was a great... I'm looking forward to hearing more of your work in the future. It's going to be so much fun to hear a little bit more about these genres and so on that you're working with. Especially now that I know you can do Eurobit.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to sharing it as well.
Yeah. No, with that said, I think it's time for us to close down this episode as well. So I'm just going to go with my usual closing words.
Yeah.
So, yeah, other episodes of Gameable Audio, you can find those on our homepage at videospelsklubben.se. You can also find the episodes over at Spotify or in your closest podcast app. Feel free to follow and comment on one of our social medias. Either find us on Facebook or on Instagram. Just search for Gameable Audio and you'll find us there. And it also helps a lot just commenting and following so more people can find this amazing podcast. I'm saying so myself, but I'm mostly pointing towards Jacob here for making this amazing tracks that we've been listening to today. And also, if that's not enough, you want to support more, then you can actually do that. You can also support this podcast for future content and quality upgrades, but also in the end, future composers. So think about becoming a Patreon. Our current awesome Patreon backers that we have today is Daniel Onemark, Lars Schenström, Titti Schenström, Kevin Wikström, and Mike Björkholm. And of course, if more people want to go in, even just $1 is enough for you to join in on the giveaway for the soundtrack for this game as well. So don't forget about that. Links where you can either buy and support Jacob and his music, you'll find those in our main post at videospelsklubben.se. And the next episode theme that we're going to go through as we are going and heading into June, we are going to make a Masters of VGM episode. Yes, throughout June, a lot of musical podcasts within video game music are going to talk about one subject, and it's going to be female, trans, and gender queer composers. I don't know how much you know about any of within this topic, considering females and gender queer and trans, Jacob, in composer way.
I mean, there are definitely representation of all genders, and I have seen it a lot more. I mean, when I started, there were probably 95% male composers, and that has changed drastically, which I think is amazing.
Yes, I think so as well, but I think it's also so much fun to have that specific theme for this event this year, because it will bring... I've been talking to so many people. It's like, hey, do you want to join in for my podcast to talk about this subject? And people are like, I don't know any composers that are female, because everybody knows male, and everybody is loving like male-dominated games that had male composers. So I think this brings a lot of subject to this theme, and a lot of like flesh on the body.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward actually to this year's theme, because it's such an important theme itself, to bring knowledge to the market about other composers out there.
Definitely.
So I'm super excited. The podcast theme here was composed by the amazing Thor Myrdal, and this was episode 35. No, 36. Holy crap, numbers. On the game Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom special, as we were joined by Jacob Lincke. Thank you so much for joining in, Jacob. It was fun having you, fun discussing with you again on your processes when making music.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chris.
And for everybody else who has joined in, thank you so much for listening in. And if you like this episode, think about commenting, etc. Other than that, hope you all have a great time and have a nice week. And that all of you looking forward to the next episode. With that said, have a good time and see you all guys next time.
Bye-bye.